Hi, everybody. This is Dr. Christy Taylor, and I'm back with another episode of the Career Coach RX podcast. And as you guys know, we have been making that pivot into social impact, and that includes highlighting great professionals. Last month, we highlighted Black professionals and entrepreneurs in celebration of Black History Month. This month, we are really focusing on celebrating a diverse group of women, and our podcast theme for this month is Women Reign, and we have some powerhouses in the building. And so I'm so excited today to speak to Mrs. Kenisha Nichelle. Kenisha is a resilient daughter, wife, mother, and friend. She has triumphed over personal gain and personal pain and tragedy. She has forged a life centered on purpose and people. And this girl is doing it. This woman, phenomenal woman, is doing her thing in the sports industry. We titled today's podcast. I have to tell you the title because I was telling Kenisha, hey, I'm not a sports fan, but I have great respect for her. It's women changing the game and leading in a male-dominated industry. So Kenisha's going to share her story with us and her career inspirations. And we're so excited to have you, Queen. You know, wear your crown proudly because, again, women reign. We're so excited to have you today. And so, Kenisha, tell us a little bit about yourself and your story.
I will. But first and foremost, Dr. Taylor, thank you so much for the invitation. I'm grateful. What you're doing is amazing. And so I salute you, fellow woman, for highlighting women and just doing your thing in this space.
Thank you. So
but again, I'm Kenisha Nichelle. I'm originally from Louisville, Kentucky, born and raised, but I do currently reside in Miami, Florida. To make a very, very long story short, I originally went out and set out to go to school to be an athletic trainer. I thought that, working in sports, I thought it was cool. I thought I wanted to be a doctor. So I said, hey, what are those people who run out on the field? Like they do something medicine-y, right? So I did my due diligence and figured out that they were called athletic trainers. So while at the University of Kentucky, I pivoted, I changed my major and went out to become an athletic trainer. I was a student athletic trainer with the track and field team, loved it, loved everything about it. But it wasn't until tragedy had struck. So at the age of 12, I lost my father to a brain aneurysm. And at 21, while I was a college student, my mother was first diagnosed with breast cancer. Fast forward to 2007, she did pass away from breast cancer. So abruptly, I became an orphan, an only child, or I am an only child, but I became an orphan right there in that moment. And she passed away in July. And so thinking about the college days, classes start back in August. So I had 1 month to figure out, what am I going to do? How am I going to continue on with the rest of my life? So I did. I went back to school. I lived an hour away. So I went back to school, dove headfirst into sports and training and doing all the things, but it came to a head because I had a coach who just didn't understand. And I, wanted to take my life because I thought that life just wasn't worth living. But I can say I am still here. I am grateful for the blessing of still being here, but it allowed me an opportunity to pivot. So I decided to transfer schools. I transferred back to my hometown, which is Louisville, Kentucky, where I decided to change my major into sports administration, which is the business side of sports. My advisor told me, hey, you got 3 years with staying with athletic training, or we can get you out in a year and a half. So I said, let's do that. With that came an opportunity to have an internship. I took that as an opportunity of not wanting to stay in Kentucky. So oh my goodness, I decided to go out and pitch to NFL teams, college bowl games, and I ended up getting an internship in Miami, Florida with the Orange Bowl Committee. That was in 2008. That ended up being not only an Orange Bowl game, but also a national championship. So I had the unique opportunity of working alongside a lot of great people during that time. And I can tell you that was the start of my career as it is today. So to fast all the way forward, today I am the Senior Director of Operations and Chief of Staff for the Orange Blossom Classic. It is a college HBCU classic game played here in Miami. I was blessed with the opportunity to come in and just be that person who gives the structure for all of our internal and external operations. But I also have the unique responsibility of actually producing the football game that you see played at Hard Rock Stadium, the home of the Miami Dolphins. So had I not taken that leap of faith, that internship back in 2008. I now work alongside my then boss as a mentor to teach me the game. And I'm just grateful to be a Black woman in the sports industry who can literally produce football games.
That is so amazing. I told you in the beginning of our conversation, I have no idea about sports. I just think it's amazing to be in that industry as a woman. And I know that you are the founder of a nonprofit, am I correct? Which we'll definitely talk about. But I got to ask you some questions about what was it like to pivot, right? Because even I remember my sister being in school. She was going to school for to be a pharmacist, right? And she was running track at the time. And I was serving in the military, but then I all of a sudden hear the story about how she has to make this pivot. I want to just kind of ask you some questions around it, because so many times that was an early pivot for you, right? Yes. But I'm sure that there are so many times in your career where you've encountered challenges, where you've had to make decisions and make pivots. Maybe it wasn't going the way that something didn't go the way that you wanted to go, right? And I know that part of your commitment is supporting people. You're driven by it says your God-given purpose. And it's so much easier when we know that it's God-given, right? But when you are in a situation where you have to make a decision to pivot, it's not going to look the way that you want it to look. And if you guys are listening in on this, when you hear this podcast, just know that we all make our plans and God laughs, right?
Listen.
But when you are in a situation like that, what was that, what was that like for you? You had to make that decision. And then can you share some examples in your career that has gotten you to where you go, because you had to make decisions to maybe to pivot?
Yeah, so I would say one that actually stands out to me is there was a point in time where I wasn't no longer in sports. That wasn't my choice. It just kind of happened abruptly. So if you fast forward again, so 2012, 2013, I was invited to come back to the Orange Bowl to be a part of another national championship. Well, once that opportunity was over, I wasn't a full-time employee. So once the contract is over, it's over. And so I'm like, okay, what do I do next? Well, I ended up going to a nonprofit, going to a homeless shelter, and becoming their volunteer coordinator, because that's what my role was before. So I took on that job because I said, well, obviously, I have a family. I just had a newborn. So I needed income, right? But there was something that was inside of me that was still kind of gnawing at knowing, sports is your passion. You love it. You have to do what you have to do for your family. But how are we going to get back to that thing that you love? And so I worked in that volunteer position for about 8 months. There were some other factors that kind of led to my decision of walking away. But in the end, I decided that no, there's something inside of me that's still calling me to that dream. And so my encouragement to anyone would be is to always follow that internal knowing that, if you wake up in the morning and you're already miserable, that might not be the place where you need to be, right? Not to say that every day is going to be just peachy cream, right? But you know that feeling when you wake up and it's like, oh my God, it's Monday. We got a whole week to get through, right? We come home at night, we're dead dog tired, and then we got to get up and do it again. And so when you have that internal passion and you have purpose, that gives you that extra drive when you don't feel like it. Because even now, there are long days. I work 16-hour days at sometimes, and it can beat you down. But you have that internal passion. You know that this is producing something that is literally going to give you joy. And so I would encourage anyone who has to make that pivoting decision, sit with yourself, obviously ask those questions like, is this really what I want to be doing? Is there something else that's calling me to pivot? And if so, make the necessary adjustments so that you can continue to live that life that you feel fulfilled and you feel proud of.
And you have talked about, some of the challenges you had, being a young woman who lost her parents, and you still stayed the course. Because a lot of my college students, former college students, they'll listen in on this. And just to make a connection with you, I used to be a professor and dean down at Palm Beach State. I lived in Wellington for about 10 years. So then I made the transition to DC. And one of my life goals has always been to work with an HBCU. And I just love how you are making this impact right on the sports industry, and you're connecting with HBCUs. And what I love most, though, is that you're living in your God-given purpose. So what is a typical day like for Kenisha, right? What is a typical day like?
So that's a good question. I could give two answers, because there's a typical day right now, and then there's a typical day when I'm 30 days out from the game. So right now we're in planning. Thankfully we're at our fourth year of this game coming back to South Florida. So right now, it's a lot of meetings, it's a lot of collaborative efforts and ideation of, okay, we know we're going to do the luncheon, we know we're going to have a battle of the bands, we know we're going to have a fan fest tailgate. So what are the pieces to those puzzles? So I'm the one that's kind of, I would say, delegating, if you will, but passing off those questions to the events manager, to our sponsorship coordinator, to say, all right, do we have sponsors that are attached to this game or to this event? What events, are we doing, and what sponsors are attached to that? I handle a lot of the marketing. So I connect with our marketing agency to say, hey, we need graphics for this. We need to start promoting, that. Right now we have two new schools that are participating. So we have Alabama State University and North Carolina Central. So for us, there's a lot of awareness that has to go out about, letting everyone know, hey, the game is still on. It's still Labor Day weekend. Make sure you get your tickets and follow us on social so you can hear about all the other things that are happening. So I connect with those groups to make sure that, that message gets out. I would say fast forward though, 30 days out, it's all hands on deck. I am in constant close communication with the schools, with our municipalities on the police enforcement side. So, the teams have to have escorts once they land in South Florida. I'm in communication with Hard Rock Stadium to make sure that everything in the building is prepared to turn over the field for our game. I'm in communication with ESPN because they're our broadcast partner. So they come in about a day and a half before. I could go on and on about the list, but I would say we have a great team. We have a great leader. She is the visionary behind this. And so for me, having done all of the things that I've done at an Orange Bowl, I've worked for Super Bowl, I wanted to take all of that good, rich knowledge and information and to provide it to students who look like me, right? South Florida is definitely a breed and a bred home for athletes. A lot of PWI schools come to South Florida to recruit. And so I wanted to be a part of the team that gives our kids the opportunity to see HBCUs played on this national stage. So it gives me great pride to be able to use those gifts and talents that I have gotten in other spaces and now bring it to our HBCU.
So you are a woman, and I just heard you mention another woman who's leading the game too, but you're a woman who have claimed the reins in the sports industry. And so many of the conversations that I've had with professional women and entrepreneurs, even in the last month where we focused on the Black history, highlighting Black professionals, is that feelings of imposter syndrome, feelings of, having your, I like to say this, you gave me a seat at the table, but won't let me eat. Okay. Can I get my pork chop sandwich too? Okay. So, cause I'm here, right? I have something. So what has been your experience, as a woman in leadership in this male dominated industry, climbing the corporate ladder, to be in the position that you are in today? And what advice would you give to women? Cause I definitely want to transition to this, let's answer this question first, but I want to talk about, your organization, Game Changers United.
So which one do you want me to do?
Let's talk about the having your seat at the table first, okay, and the feelings of challenges you may experience and advice you would give to women.
Awesome. Okay. So my leader, our executive director is Kendra Bullock. She put this game on her back. Like I said, it was a historical game. And so she decided that, it had gone away out of South Florida and decided to do what it took to get the rights of this game and brought it back. So I'm grateful for her. I'm grateful that she would see some potential in me. And again, in our first time meeting, I talked about events and volunteering because that was my expertise at that moment. However, and this is an encouraging word for those who may be watching, that you never know who is watching. And also when you are in some rooms, maybe you may not be at the table just yet, but if you're in the room, make sure that you're soaking up all of that good information, because that's how I was able to get this particular position. I've been in rooms, I've been a part of conversations with planning Super Bowls, with planning national championships. So I've been able to see all of the different nuances. So where when she and I had a conversation and we, talked about the opportunity, she's like, more than you're giving off, because you've definitely been in those rooms. And so, I'm grateful for that. And now to be an executive at this level, to literally host, our pre and post production meetings with, 50 to 75 people. And I'm the one on the microphone giving that information. There does come with that feelings of maybe am I supposed to be doing this? Should I be doing this? And the answer is yes, because I do believe, and God has honestly given me the gift of knowing that if I put you in that room and in that space, then this is where you're supposed to be. And so my advice to anyone who may feel that sense of imposter syndrome is to own your greatness, is to know that, when you are invited into these spaces, it's for a reason. There's no accidents. And when you show up into that space, show up as your full self. Be confident in knowing that I was brought in this space. I was brought to this table. And so I have to walk in that. Now, it also, in the back of my mind, I now know that, I'm up against my counterparts, which are predominantly white males. So of course, I'm Kenisha, I'm the Black girl with curly hair coming in, right? But I understand that what's inside of me is good information, for one. And then I know what I'm talking about. I've sit at the table while we're planning these events. And so I'm able to come to these meetings and be able to say, no, this is what we're doing. This is how it's getting done. And this is how we make sure that this event is a success for all. So that's how I tackle it. That didn't come easy. Like I said, I'm in year 4 now. And so I can speak confidently and say that. But definitely, year 1, there was some reservations there. My mentor, if you will, in this space, he's a white man. He's a great guy, but definitely, had to lean on him until I felt it. And now I feel it and I walk proudly in it.
Yeah, I have found that I was going to say, first of all, you see me taking notes because I'm trying to type a little bit because of course, my pen don't work in the middle of me right now. But I'm taking notes because it's something that you said so profound. The last guest I just interviewed, we were talking about, us as women in this workspace. And I really love the fact, and a lot of my mentors in my military career have been white males that have seen my potential and given me opportunity. And I think that it goes to reflect on us as professionals, that even in this space, I can run things like the Black Health Summit, or say I'm doing all women this, right? And those things, when we talk about diversity and inclusion, is never an issue because they know me for who I am, which is the same as you, right? Those people know you for who you are. I recently, it was like last year, I went to a executive retreat for HBCU professionals, and they mentioned a book, and it's one of the greatest books that I've ever read. It was called Forget a Mentor, Find a Sponsor. That book was by Sylvia Hewitt. And what she talks about in that book is, so really the person you're calling your mentor is probably more so your sponsor, because we get mentors and these are the people who take us so far. Like when we get into an organization, right, and we're just asking questions. Like, so you think about, like, if I want to be, basically the point of this book is like, if I want to be a president, right? So let's say I want to be a college president. The department chairman is a good mentor. Right. They can kind of show me the culture, right? But as a department chairman at a level, is that person going to put me in the room where I can connect with the president, right? And so you have to choose sponsors, the people that are going to be willing. The reason why I am where I am in the military today, right, is because there were people who said my name in the room where I wasn't there, because they knew my works out. And that's the same with you, Kenisha. It's people that's advocating for you, that are sponsoring you and supporting you and championing you and training you. And so I would say that to anybody out there, right? When you are connecting with people, when you're looking to build your career, find you somebody who will champion you and will say your name in the room in a way that you can trust, right? It's mentioning you. Right. So I just commend you on that. The other thing in listening to you is, I keep going back to God-given purpose. No, this is not a religious podcast, but I have no problem with saying that God is the author of my faith, right? And if you and to women who are questioning, to your point, why I have this seat at the table or whether or not I belong here, well, like you say, if God put you in the room, then that's the end of the conversation. It doesn't matter. Don't go based on your feelings. Right. So here you are, this phenomenal woman. You're empowering and inspiring other people to achieve their goals and be successful. And then you launched this nonprofit group. So can you just tell the audience a little bit about the work you're doing with Game Changers?
Yes. So this is something that was birthed here recently. Game Changers United is the mission of it is to support and to provide safe spaces for student athletes. So I was not a student athlete. However, I feel very close connected because I was that trainer. I was a student athletic trainer for the track and field team and for the women's basketball team. And it was while I was with the women's basketball team when that tragedy of losing my mother happened. And like I said, because I had a coach who I wanted to go home for the weekend just to see my family, to get loved on and get some, some extra TLC. And that coach told me no. And because of that, no, that was the last day that I was a student trainer. And I think to myself, I was just the trainer, right? I'm just taping ankles and providing ice. What if I was the point guard? What if I was one of the team captains? Are you telling them that they can't get the support that they need while they're dealing with life because they're an athlete? And that has always followed me, just that notion. And so fast forward, I too am a professor. And last semester, we had a young woman on the women's basketball team to take her life. And it triggered me because I'm like, I know how she felt. I know what she was going through, not specifically, of course, but, just having that pressure of being a student, being an athlete, and probably dealing with other things. And so what is those safe spaces that athletes have? And of course, there are psychologists and, they have counselors on campus, but are they really providing a safe space for athletes to connect together to say, hey, back home, I just lost a cousin or my grandmother is sick. And so we have all of these other things that we're dealing with in our lives while still having to maintain studies and sports. And so the goal is just to create safe spaces for student athletes and administrators to connect and to be able to talk about their issues, to be able to get support and know that they're not going through this by themselves. But also there's a spiritual component to where maybe you've lost sight of your faith and you feel like, I need to quit. I don't need to do this anymore. And so now you have a community where you can get that love and support from others who have been where you are.
But that's not the end of your work for nonprofits, right? And working with students, because you also have another foundation, the Brighter Tomorrow Foundation. But I do want to, before you get there, you made me think of something about how God aligns things, right? Because I literally just started a test launch of an organization called Safe Spaces, a meetup group for Strategic Alliance of African American female entrepreneurs and professionals, right? I literally just did a test launch of that last night. So there'll be more to come depending on the level of membership that I build with that. But that's amazing because it's as women, and I think to other women who are out there listening, it does not matter if you're black, white, yellow, or purple, right?
Right.
As women, as we're forging the way, as we climb the ladder and we continue to build up the ranks, and we think about what we can do to give back, it is a matter of us creating those safe spaces and not feeling like that. I'm very big on this. Nobody's your competition. If you believe that God has a path for you, you just need to follow the direction that he has for you. You don't have to feel like you got to proactively clear a space.
Not at all.
You just follow the path he has for you. He's going to open that door for you. So there's great things, for all of the work that you're doing to give back. It's going to continue to build, Kenisha. So you're also the founder of Brighter Tomorrow Foundation, right? And so tell us a little bit about that organization as well.
So that came about right in the midst of COVID. Everything got shut down and we started losing loved ones and family members, just kind of at a rapid pace. And so again, there was that nudge. I felt that I had safely come through the toughest part of my grief. You still feel it. And I've actually just shared this on my Instagram yesterday that, I still have moments. Of course, when I turn off the camera, I still go to a life without my parents. But at that particular moment, I felt like I'd come through the toughest part. And so we had so many people that were losing loved ones that I wanted to be a support. And so I founded the Brighter Tomorrow Foundation as a notion of, yes, there can be a brighter tomorrow. There can still be a good life after loss. And so with that organization, I've done a lot of workshops. I am a certified life coach. So I have done, coaching sessions one-on-one of how to help you if you're battling with grief. How do you get to see towards the future? Because when you're in the midst of it, it's dark. You don't feel like you're not going to be able to get to the other side. And so with that organization, again, it's just a lot of tools and resources to help those that are battling grief.
So I have a couple of more questions to ask you. So this is going to be a little bit longer than 30 minutes. I have to also Well, one, I want to know, as you're climbing this ladder and you're doing all these awesome things and doing nonprofits, you have a family. And sometimes women, we often feel like in our careers, like you got to choose, right? So how have you like made that balance and still continue to wear your crown, queen?
Well, the first choice is I only wanted one child. So I commend anyone who has more than one. And I love my baby dearly. But she's a handful. So, we are a one and done family, but I do have an amazing husband, who also supports. Now he works in sports as well. So we, we have to, balance our schedules, and, we've gotten to a point where we use a family calendar now to make sure, okay, are you on pickup? Am I on pickup? But in all, yes, I think there is such thing as balance, but then there's also, you just do, there's things that just have to get done that, there is no balance in that moment. It's like, okay, who's got her? I got him. You got to figure it all out. Who's cooking? Are we picking up food? Are we going out? Are there other activities? We got family we got to check on and make sure that they're good. So there's a lot of different nuances, but I think the important thing with all of it is taking time for yourself as well. And then that doesn't have to necessarily be going out to get a massage, because people think that that's what self-care means. No, for me, it's making sure that I get home in enough time to get into bed and binge watch my shows and rub my feet together. That brings me peace and that brings me joy. And so I just make sure that I do little things like that. Of course, I am a spiritual girl, so I will take time to either listen to gospel in the morning, make sure that my cup gets full before I set out for the day. So I think there's a way to you just have to do. You definitely have to make sure that you have support. That is definitely important. We're grateful for the family members that can take our little ones so we can have a date night and we can have time to just kick back, ourselves. But all in all, I think it's just as a female who is attempting to do all of these things, I just, believe in the grace that God has given me, but I also know that family is a big factor too.
So for you, for those of you who are listening in, whether you look at it, I look at it, even if I say universe, I'm still referring to God, but however you look at it, if you are living in your purpose, right, there is not any excuse. We talked about as some of these events I've done, I've been able to connect with those women. We talk about like how even now, someday I'm gonna have a big recording studio, Kenisha.
Right. Yes, you will.
This is truly has been a walk of faith. Like when people look at the stuff that I am doing, that's only been since November of last year. The events I'm throwing, the podcast, all that stuff that I'm doing. I mean, I'm blessed to be able to have a staff to be able to support me, but we're building and we're doing it quickly because we're walking in our purpose and we're doing it with the system. Now, okay, the one thing I do follow in sports, I have to ask you about. I have noticed when you talk about this, and this literally shows the difference between myself and my family, right? Because they're following the events that are happening. Shout out to my little cousin Evan. He plays basketball in college, and of course I can't think of the name at the moment. First time going to a basketball game to support him when he was at Lehigh. Oh, he plays at Vanderbilt University. So he plays at Vanderbilt University. He plays on the basketball team there. But when he was at Lehigh, I remember going to a Lehigh University game, and I had not been to a basketball game since I was in college. So since I was in high school. So I did not know that college basketball games are only 30 minutes. I mean, there's like two halves. Because in high school, they're like 15-minute quarters. I really thought that I was going to be sitting there for hours. I was like, oh my God, one quarter is literally 30 minutes. So one of the things that I do follow is I noticed like with the rise of female coaches, I noticed that some of the women who choose to like dress like super professional and have a sense of style, I noticed that they always get a little bit of pushback. Now, I know that you're working in a corporate sense, so to the extent that you can share your perspective on that, what are your thoughts on, women who are working as coaches in this male-dominated industry? They're getting a little bit of pushback on it now.
So I got to speak for myself. I'm a sneakers girl. I put on my vision board a long time ago that when I go to work, I want to be able to wear Nike gear. So I commend and I celebrate the women who show up in heels and do that. I actually have a family member who she is a basketball coach for Florida State. And I'm like, why are you wearing heels? And I mean, big heels too, because this is basketball. But, it's a culture. That's something that they've established. So, and they look great doing it. You know, I've seen both sides. I've seen, you know, the Dawn Staley's who, you know, she's decked out in, you know, name brand, but she looks great doing it. And then there's other coaches. I think it's the coach for Texas, where she's got sky high heels and boots and all the things. So I support both of it. You know, they look great doing it. For me and mine, I'm a sneakers girl. I can't do it. Now, I will wear a very nice suit. That's my thing. You know, game days, I love to put on a nice suit. You know, everybody else wants to be casual. Like, no, this is business. So I'll wear a nice tailored suit, but I will have on some nice sneakers as well.
Yeah, I love Tabitha Brown's approach, because I know living in DC, and I'm just learning to take the Metro rail. I've been wearing boots all summer, so I just ordered me a pair of shoes, because I really do want to wear some heels, but it's just too much to have to walk from the train to work and not bringing extra shoes. So I'm like, I can continue to wear boots or a pair of sneakers, right? Because I want to be comfortable. Let me correct myself. One, when we started this, I said Kenisha Nichelle. You're a Kenisha Nichelle, right? Yeah. And then two, the least I can do is know my little cousin's number. Lord, the child played for Evan Taylor, number 12, Vanderbilt basketball team. So shout out to him. So your cousin Christian is watching you, baby, if you listen. But you know, this has been such a wonderful interview, great energy. You had some great advice, and sister, you are out here doing your thing in a male-dominated industry, and you still finding time for God, your family, and to give back to your community through these nonprofits. And I think this is an excellent example of the power of a woman at work and a queen on her throne. So as always, my last question to you will be to share a little bit of wisdom, parting words with our audience, and also let us know how we can reach you. Do you have any events that are coming up that you want to promote?
So I would say my final words to those who are navigating their career, trying to, you know, figure out purpose. I know a lot of people ask that question, what's my purpose? I would say to you, what is that thing that brings you joy? What is that thing that you can do effortlessly? What is that thing, maybe if you go back to your childhood, that you found yourself doing that, you know, you were able to do it flawlessly. Really quick story. So for me, when I was, probably 7, 8 years old, my grandparents brought me to their basketball tournaments, their church basketball leagues. And I was the one who they thought they could just throw me in the concession area and just kind of be there. Well, I ended up like running the concessions, right? They gave me this nickname, Miss Brown, because I would go in, and I'm serious. I'm like 7, 8, 9 years old, something like that. And I'm in there taking orders, you know, taking money, getting, you know, change and making the nachos, getting the hot dogs. But I was in that environment very early. And so I think that has a lot to do with who I am and what I'm doing today. And so I share that with you because sometimes your purpose is sitting right in front of your face and you can't see it. And so when you're thinking about your career, obviously, you know, we're in the world where we have to work. You know, you definitely want to make sure that it's something that you enjoy doing, that you don't wake up every day dreading, and then, you know, you don't get nauseous when you think about it. So it's important to make sure that whatever you decide to do with your life, whatever gifts and talents God has blessed you with, that you really sit and hone in on the fact that I need to enjoy this. Obviously, I got to make a living, but sometimes even just doing something that you love where you may not make the most amount of money will bring you enough joy to be able to get through. And so I just wanted to share that tidbit because there may be somebody who is in flux with their careers and not sure what they should do. Take my advice and just lean in on your purpose. Think about the things from your childhood and think about the things that bring you joy. I can be found on Instagram and on TikTok. Kenisha Nichelle is my name. I do a lot of motivational and inspirational messaging, again, around my story of surviving trauma, overcoming the fact that I've lost both of my parents very young. And so I'm just grateful to now have come through that and to also have this career that I have today. So I hope to see you around. Be sure to click the link in bio and sign up for my mailing list. I do have some things that are coming up for this year, and I would love to have you a part of it.
We will definitely feature you in our email blast to our audience. And guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Remember that you can find us across all social media platforms at Career Coach RX. You can check out the website, careercoachrx.com. It's still going to take you to the same place because Career Coach RX is just a part of Work Solutions LLC. That's WORXK Solutions LLC. WorkSolutions.com is the website. And thank you for joining us today. Remember, if you're a queen, wear your crown and wear it proudly. And for the next episode, you guys, thanks for tuning in.